Hey, let's get to Byron Donalds. Byron, great to have you with us.
Good morning, John. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. Tell us about your race in Florida.
Well, listen, Florida 19 is a seat that we're working really hard to keep in Republican hands. We're just going to, do everything we can. We're actually spending a lot of time on the ground speaking with minority voters and a lot of independent voters. Republicans down here they vote strong, and we're going to continue to do that. But we look at it as a real opportunity to start shifting a lot of voters our way because, they've been sitting at home, unfortunately, with businesses being closed. They're trying to get back to work. They're trying to make sure their kids get back to school, and we're going to bring that message to them.
So tell me about your district, Byron.
So we're Fort Myers and Naples. Part of our district is Trump territory. Voters down here love the president. He performed really well down here in 2016. We have a lot of beach land. Water is our major issue, and it's actually President Trump and Governor DeSantis down here have been leading the fight on fixing our waterways down here. And so, it's funny when I talk with liberal environmentalists, I always tell them, you should be voting for Donald Trump because he's actually the first president who's taken water quality in South Florida with the Everglades restoration seriously. He's the first one to do it. And so that kind of makes their heads explode when I say that to them, but it's the truth. And I think that, the more that we actually bring facts and reality to all voters, the easier it becomes to not just win seats for the House, but also to help reelect the president.
Byron, tell me about the incumbent in your district and how that turned blue and what the makeup is. What is it, D plus 3 or 4? What is it, Byron?
Well, no. Our current member is Francis Rooney. He's the current representative. He is a Republican. Unfortunately, Francis was, making some support decisions for a carbon tax, and he was one of the members that was thinking about voting for impeachment during that situation. He was thinking about voting for that. And so, like I said, our goal in Florida 19 is just to keep the seat red. And so we're working hard every day to do that.
Last election in 2018, what was the percent there?
2018 was 62-38. But in our area, what we've been seeing in a lot of areas is the Democrats continue to work incredibly hard and fight, except until COVID-19 started. Then I guess they stopped working. But they've been working hard to try to shift this electorate down here. And so what's important about the Southwest Florida vote, about Florida 19 in particular, is we have to make sure we turn out every vote to help the president win the state of Florida.
Tell me about how Florida looks now. The most recent polling that we have seen, Byron, seems that the president is surging in Florida, especially with the Hispanic vote there. Some people saying he could get over 50%. How does that look, Byron?
It looks very, very promising. Actually, a couple of my colleagues in Miami, I served in the Florida House for 4 years, so I have a lot of connections in Miami. My colleagues over there say that it looks very, very good that the president can go over 50% with the Hispanic vote in Florida. I know we have 2 congressional seats in that area. One that we're challenging Donna Shalala, the other we're challenging Debbie Marsukel Powell, and it looks very strong that we could take both congressional seats in this election. That's flipping actually 2 blue seats red, and so that looks incredibly promising. And that's really because I think Latino voters, Hispanic voters, I really prefer to call them by their true nationality, whether you're Peruvian, Guatemalan, Puerto Rican, Dominican. Of course, the Cuban vote is already very strongly a Republican vote. They're looking around at their economics. They're looking at what actually happens in America and not rhetoric, and I think that's why you're starting to see Hispanic votes starting to shift. Usually around the rest of the state of Florida, we're having to just amass as many votes as possible, including in my area, to overcome Miami-Dade. But with the Latino vote moving so strongly towards the president, we feel very strongly that not only are we going to flip a couple seats, but we're also going to be able to make sure we win Florida and get the president support to probably start focusing resources in other parts of the country. But we can't take anything for granted. We got to stay aggressive here in Florida, all across our state.
We're with Byron Donalds, Republican for Congress, running in the 19th district. That's a Republican area. Byron, tell us about the percentage of the African-American vote that you think the president is going to get both in Florida and then nationally, Byron, and tell us why.
Well, I definitely know it's going above 10%. I believe he's going to come in somewhere around 15 to 18%. That's both. I think that's Florida. I think that's also nationwide. The reason why is I'm starting to get messages from old college friends who, I know they're Democrats. They know my politics, and they root for me personally, but, they vote Democrat. They're sending me messages of like, you know what, I'm really starting to look at this election. I've been misled so many times in the past by Democrats. I'm watching this rioting. I don't like it. How come, how come the news media isn't telling the truth? These are the messages that they're getting and that they're starting to send me. And so that's very promising. I think the second thing is, I look at somebody like my mother. My mother is a black Democrat from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. She still lives in Brooklyn, New York. She sends me a text message that says, you know what, I watched the RNC. I'm voting for Trump. And so when I'm talking to some of my old friends and some of my old colleagues, I'm asking them, like, what's changing your mind? And what they're telling me is that they're actually looking at economics. They're actually looking at the direction of the country. They don't want to defund the police. They want to make sure that we kind of get back to work and get back to life. And it seems that all the Democrats, all they're ever doing is virtue signaling. They're showing fake leadership, or they're not even really talking about the things that are important. All they're consumed with is trying to take down the president. And I think that you have a growing number of black voters who see this. They don't like it. They know they're being lied to, and they know they're being used by the Democrat Party again, and they want something different.
Well, these are numbers, Byron, that seem to be consistent. Even in Virginia, where I am today, the latest poll that we had that just came out showed us getting 15% of the black vote in Virginia, which is unheard of, really, here. Mm-hmm. So that seems to be consistent. I don't see where if the president gets 15% of the black vote, and right now, every poll that we have, both internally and externally, show the Trump campaign at over 40% of the Hispanic vote nationally. Certainly, like we said, could get over 50% in Florida. I don't know how the Biden campaign steals it with those kind of numbers.
Well, they'll try. I mean, that's one of the issues that we're talking about with mail-in voting that's going on in so many of these other states. I mean, look, in Florida, we're kind of the model for absentee voting. We've been doing it for more than 2 decades, but our system's very clear. You have to actually request your ballots. The ballots are not sent to voters. Voters have to actively request them. Then when you request them, you have to sign your ballot. The third part is your signature has to match. And so if your signature doesn't match, your vote doesn't count. It actually gets put in a provisional status, and there's a method where a voter can go and cure their signature and cure their ballot before Election Day. And I stress before Election Day because the last part is that your absentee ballot in Florida, your mail-in ballot, however you want to call it, has to be in the hands of the Supervisor of Elections office by 7 p.m. on Election Day. The second the polls close, if your ballot's not in the possession of a Supervisor of Elections office, your ballot doesn't count. And I think that if you're going to have other states like Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, if they're going to go down this major push towards mail-in voting because, they're trying to push this fear on COVID-19, not understanding that people can still stand 6 feet apart in a line to go to the supermarket. They can stand 6 feet apart in a line to go vote. But notwithstanding all that, if you have the proper rules in place, that stops these real concerns about ballot integrity going into the presidential election. I think these other states, instead of trying to create new rules on the fly, they should just look at what Florida's been doing for 20 years, and quite successfully for 20 years.
Well, you've got the model, Byron Donalds, in Florida, no question. Byron Donalds with us, Republican, running for Congress, 19th District. That is a Republican seat, expected to go Republican again. Byron, let me just ask you this, though, straight out. You've got some of these states like Michigan, there was a court ruling the other day giving 14 days or 2 weeks to get ballots in. Now, when you look at 14 days, I could see 3 days maybe to get or 1 day. 14 days is 2 weeks. It almost seems like what the Democrats' plan is to go to Michigan on Election Day, see how many they need to win, and then manufacture them. They've got 2 weeks. I mean, how can you extend the ballots coming in for 2 weeks? Basically, then the election in Michigan is November 3rd to the 17th, or whenever early voting started. It's like 8, 10, 15 weeks. How does that even work, Byron?
It doesn't. It doesn't work. I think this is a complete travesty. I think this is ludicrous. My hope is that the Trump campaign, I know they're probably already working on this, challenges this at the circuit court level, because this is insane. You cannot extend an election for 2 weeks. You just can't do it. The supervisors of election, their office, their responsibility is to make sure votes are tabulated the second that the polls close. You cannot take in new ballots for an extended period of time. You have, we look at it like if you were going into criminal court. There's something we call the chain of custody. If a defense attorney was allowing a prosecutor to bring in new evidence, just keep bringing a new piece of evidence after new piece of evidence after new piece of evidence, long after the trial already started, without discovery, the case would be thrown out. You can't do it. And so the same principle needs to apply in our voting system. Once the polls close, that's it. You have literally, in places like Michigan, most states in the country actually, you literally have between now and November 3rd to get your ballot in. Absentee ballots just went out in Florida over the weekend. So voters in Florida have between today and November 3rd to get their ballot back to the supervisor of elections office. There's no reason it should be extended 2 weeks after election day, except to do exactly what you're saying, John, which is trying to look at what the results actually are and to try to find a way to manufacture new ballots that, oh my gosh, they were in the trunk of somebody's car, or oh my gosh, I forgot to bring these in the office. Look, I just found this new box. It's reprehensible. It actually destroys our voting system. It needs to be challenged.
Byron, that's exactly it. And like you just laid out, there's 35 days to the election. So if you're in Florida right now and you've got an absentee ballot that you've asked for whatever reason, and as you say, there's no fault absentee ballot in Florida. You don't have to have a reason. You just apply for it. You got 5 weeks. You got 5 weeks to get the ballot, fill it out, sign it, mail it back. Let me ask the other things. Why do we need ballot drop-off boxes? Because if you get the ballot, this is the thing I cannot get one Democrat to answer. If you get the ballot in the mail, that means you have to have a mailbox, right? I mean, it has to come in the mail. So you have a mailbox. And so why can't you fill out your ballot and put it back in the mailbox that you got it out of? Why would you take it to a drop box? How does that even make any sense, Byron?
It doesn't, because Democrats have always been pushing this when it comes to voting, that the American people have no ability to make a decision and make plans for themselves. They try to treat voters as if they go to the lowest common denominator of somebody who is indigent, doesn't have the 55 cents or however much it costs to buy a stamp today. They always seem to be raising it every time I turn around. That they have no possibility to find the very mailbox they just got their mail from. That they need somebody to actually, hold their, and don't get me wrong, there are certain people in the United States who need assistance and be able to get their information back to the supervisor. I'm not trying to say that, but it's very clear that when it comes to these battles on voting, the Democrats always fight to leave every possible loophole open, as opposed to making sure that they secure the voting process so everybody's vote is secure. That's why things like voter ID matter, because we want to make sure every American's vote is secure. That's why just putting a stamp, it's 55 cents. I do understand that there are more than 10 million people out of work. I'm well aware of all these things, but it's still 55 cents. And last but not least, with your absentee ballot, this is the rule in Florida. I don't want to speak for the other states. You can vote your absentee ballot, leave it on your kitchen counter, and then when it's time for early voting or election day, you can walk your ballot over to the election office. They will take it from you, or to wherever your polling precinct is. They will take it from you, and then it will count. That's how we do it in Florida. So like I said, when the Democrats, they come up with these arcane and asinine rules, you always are concerned because it never secures the vote. It tries to leave the system open so that there's more potentials for fraud, that there's more potential for ballots that just show up that somebody didn't account for. And that does not help the American people. It actually makes our voting process worse.
Well, it's so that they can manipulate the election results. It's like Joe Stalin said, it doesn't matter who voted. The only thing that matters is who's counting the votes, right?
That's right.
That's what Stalin said, and he was exactly right back then. But if you look at this idea of the ballot, what is it, drop-off box, like the Democrats want that because it's outside of the system. So, like, who picks up the box? Who can go into the box? Who can sift through those votes? Who can drop them off? I mean, who's got access to it? All of this is open to fraud. And so it's just beyond me that you would have to have drop boxes. And of course, then you have the ballot harvesting fiasco that California has made a science, where you basically mail ballots out in mass and go around to old people's homes, get them to sign it, throw it in the bag. And if you see that they voted for Trump, you lose it. I mean, it's inconceivable to me that anybody is going to find that system to be fair and equitable. Byron.
No, it's not. That's why, listen, I always come back to the Florida model. Right now, we have drop-off boxes in Florida. But you know where they are? They're at the Supervisor of Elections office.
Right.
So if you have your
be.
ballot where it should be, you have to go to the Supervisor of Elections office and you can drop the ballot off. On Election Day at our precincts, some of our precinct locations have a drop-off box inside the voting precinct. So if you're very concerned about COVID-19, we can do the simple things like make sure you wash your hands, don't touch your face, wear a mask if you want to, just open up the door, walk inside, hand in your absentee ballot in a bucket that the local crew who's working that polling location is manning, and don't touch your face, don't touch anything else, and walk back out. Maintain 6 feet of space. You go and you drop it. These things are simple. It's not hard. The issue is that the Democrats are using the pandemic as an excuse to open up the system in so many ways that don't secure the vote. And so when I talk about this issue, and I do often actually because of where we are in this election cycle, I always talk about securing the vote. And I want to make sure that all voters, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, you're liberal, conservative, whatever, it doesn't matter. The thing we want to do is secure the vote of every American. And, it's funny that, we're 20 years down the line from hanging chads, because I know that's also some part of Florida history is hanging chads. But if we really want to make sure we secure the vote in all the other 49 states, the Florida model is the model they should be using.
No question about it. Byron, I've only got about a minute and a half remaining or so. Tell us about Trump winning Florida. The numbers that we've seen in the last couple of days all point to him surging there. How do you feel about it?
I think the president's going to win Florida. What we've seen is what was actually happened in 2016. The president's campaign always seems to surge. The energy builds up. We have local Republicans in our area are out canvassing neighborhoods, making phone calls every single day. You're starting to see other voters who typically were not Trump voters are starting to actually pay attention to this election. I think the one thing that that's misled is these national polls that happen months in advance. Most Americans aren't really paying attention. They're starting to pay attention now. And what they realize is the president has a plan, and Joe Biden just hides in his basement, wears a mask when there's nobody around him, which is ridiculous to me. And he stumbles, he stutters, he doesn't know what he's going to say. He has no real idea where he is, and he also thinks it's going to be the Harris-Biden administration. Voters are starting to pay attention. They're starting to understand that Joe Biden has no plan. Joe Biden's been around far too long. And so why would you give the keys of the country to a person who's been in office for 47 years and has accomplished nothing? President Trump has accomplishments. He's going to keep his promises. He already did the first 4. He's going to do it the second 4.
Byron Donalds, thank you for being with us. More information, you can go to byrondonalds.com on his campaign, byrondonalds.com. Byron, thanks for the insight on Florida. We really appreciate it. Good luck. I look to speaking to you in December when you're about to be inaugurated in January to go to Congress. And thanks for being with us. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks, John. Have a good one.